Moscow counterattacked to recapture 40% of Kursk province, putting Kiev troops in a situation of being surrounded and destroyed at any time. At the same time, record progress was achieved on the Ukrainian battlefield. Never before has Russia acted so decisively, attacking so fiercely with such great speed. NATO held an emergency meeting to discuss how to respond and recommended that members provide all necessary weapons to Ukraine. The US completed the installation of a missile defense system in northern Poland and is ready to deploy missiles in Japan. Stress levels continue to rise. Rumor has it that Washington may supply Tomahawk strategic missiles to Kiev. There are even experts who recommend that the US transfer nuclear weapons to Ukraine. Russia immediately responded strongly, saying the Orshuk missile could be used on a larger scale. According to TASS news agency, Moscow is preparing to put the world's most powerful intercontinental missile RS-28 capable of carrying nuclear warheads into combat duty. Vice Chairman of the National Security Council Dmitry Medvedev announced that Moscow would be forced to attack NATO military bases if the West provided long-range missiles to Ukraine against Russia. The cards have not been revealed yet. We don't know what other blows the parties will take. But it can be said that the cycle of tit for tat continues, both on the battlefield and in the media. Media war. The information given by both sides was contradictory. At times it seemed like they were talking about two different wars. In Kursk, some experts say Russian intelligence is powerless, leading to strategic mistakes, damage to the posture, loss of forces, and loss of credibility, more than 3 months without recapture, demonstrating limited capabilities. But there are also opinions that Ukraine made mistakes and failed both politically and militarily. Elite forces were placed in a siege position. Russia has not yet launched a major counterattack in Kursk to focus on breaking through on the Ukrainian battlefield. The same goes for missile wars. One side affirms that the Orshuk missiles attack is unmatched and has great military and political significance, both for Ukraine and NATO. On the contrary, the other side said that Orshuk carries a warhead that does not contain explosives and has negligible destructive power. Russia has not produced many missiles of this type, and this is just a wind blow. Similarly, information about the losses of the two sides is also very different. These are just specific examples for many other cases. In a long, wide-ranging war, the value and meaning of a military operation must be placed in the overall strategy with many different purposes. Conflicting opinions are the result of an information war between the parties, in which the West has the upper hand. Some experts, due to one-sided bias or incomplete information, are confused. In the context of highly developed information warfare, accurately assessing the true nature is difficult and easily influenced. Therefore, it is necessary to consider objectively, comprehensively and proactively. Information warfare along with missile warfare and an unprecedented increase in attacks raise concerns about the brink side of war situation and the risk of World War III. The danger exists. Both Russia and the West talk about the risk of World War III, even nuclear war. According to some Western experts, the presence of third-party military forces in Ukraine, referring to North Korea, and NATO's stronger, deeper, more direct involvement in the conflict are signs of danger. Engine of the next World War. Why do all sides emphasize the brink of war situation? What's behind the hot warning? President Volodymyr Zelensky's purpose is to attract NATO and the West to deeper involvement and more aid, under the pretext of preventing the Russian threat to European and American security. At the same time, we want to prove that NATO's admission of Kiev is an urgent need. The warnings of the West, NATO and the US are intended to create unity, strengthen determination and promote stronger action, forcing Russia into a position of failure and weakness. It is also an excuse to justify strengthening and expanding NATO and increasing the defense budget. Russia has repeatedly warned about the risk of World War III to deter NATO from getting more directly and strongly involved in the conflict in Ukraine. At the same time, it is a psychological blow to influence the people of Western countries, not to let their governments get deeply involved and drag the country into an unrelated conflict. The above actions are also related to the time when President-elect Donald Trump will be sworn into office in 2 months. One side wants to create a fait accompli, a barrier prevents the new owner of the White House from turning the corner in policy with Ukraine. The other side wants to take advantage of the positive side from the statement limiting aid to Kiev, promoting negotiations to end the conflict, as Mr. Donald Trump's election promise. Everyone wants to create a beneficial outcome before January 20, 2025. With the profound goal of defeating the opponent, with the obscure and unpredictable strategies, both on the battlefield and in the media, of the parties, the risk of the conflict in Ukraine erupting into World War III cannot be completely ruled out. However, Western military experts admit that ATACMS and Tomahawk missiles can cause many difficulties for Moscow, prolonging the conflict, but do not determine the battlefield situation, because their numbers are limited and Russia's territory is large. And great military and defense industry potential. Russia has an advantage on the battlefield and will not provoke itself, creating an excuse for NATO to directly participate in the war, unless forced into a corner position. From the strategic intentions, the correlation of the combined forces of the parties and the fact that the red line has been crossed many times, it is possible to predict the risk of World War III, a nuclear war that is unlikely to occur. Because the consequences are dire and unpredictable for everyone. To some extent, the brink of war situation and the risk of nuclear war are also factors that force hot heads to consider carefully and look for backup solutions. Both sides are considering negotiation options. The question is how much concessions can be made and what goals can be achieved. Both Russia and the West talk about the risk of World War III, even nuclear war. Tough negotiations. Thus, the development of the conflict is tense and complicated, but the door to negotiation is still not locked. Some optimistic forecasts say that negotiations can take place and basically be concluded in 2025. The most basic and thorny issue is the prerequisites of the parties. Ukraine still does not give up demanding that Russia withdraw all troops from occupied areas, including the Crimea Peninsula, and be admitted to NATO. At the same time, request the West and NATO to provide support to create a favorable position with Russia, before accepting negotiations. In essence, it draws the West and NATO into long-term involvement in the conflict. One of the root causes leading to the special military campaign on February 24, 2022 is NATO's expansion, closing in on Russia from all sides. Finding ways to support Kyiv in improving the situation, prolonging the war of attrition, pushing Moscow into a bogged-down and weakened position, is a realistic calculation by NATO and the West. In the current context, the US can both cut aid to Ukraine and put pressure on both sides, forcing Kyiv to cede part of its territory, suspend its request to join NATO, in exchange for freezing the conflict. Russia cannot accept half-hearted compromises. In addition to maintaining and restoring the areas declared annexed, Russia wants to negotiate directly with the US and NATO. Moscow's uncompromising condition is that Kyiv is completely neutral and will not join NATO forever. So, there is still hope in the negotiation scenario, but developments are complicated and nothing can be said in advance.